All right, so it's 11:01. We are going to get started. Thank you everyone so much for coming to this webinar presented by TouchStay Digital Guidebooks. This is also, I wanted to let you guys know that if you want to start a free trial with TouchStay, go to touchstay.com/influencers, get a 14-day free trial. And I'm going to give you the secret code word right now for anybody who's even thinking of doing TouchStay Digital Guidebooks. Get 10% off your new account with the code Influencer Queen. And we'll share that again at the end as well. All right, first, I need everybody to introduce themselves. And we're going to start with Sarah.
Hi, Tyann. Thank you for that. Hello, everyone. My name's Sarah Orchard. I am the co-owner of a luxury treehouse business in the UK called the Hudnall's Hideout. We opened it was February 2020, so just before the pandemic, 5 weeks before the pandemic hit the UK. So that was good timing with a long-term business. It took us a long time to open, so that was challenging at the time, but we're 4 years in now, which I can't quite believe. I'm also the founder of Get Fully Booked, which is an online resource for short-term rental owners to help them to master their marketing.
Thank you, Maddie.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name's Madi Rifkin. I'm the CEO and founder of Mount, and we are essentially taking the traveler perspective, finding the world's best hidden gems, bringing them online, and then allow short-term rental hosts to distribute those gems to your guests through our easy-to-use software products. So all about guest experience. We work with a ton of influencers and an influencer myself. So this is a very relevant conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Maddie. And then we have Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I am a travel content creator. I'm a mom of two, and I got started in this kind of by accident. So it's been so much fun, though, navigating this whole world. I kind of focus on luxury, adventure, travels, where to stay, where to eat, what to do with your family in these not so typical destinations that you may not think to take your family to. So
Awesome. And then I'm Tyann Marsing Hammond. I'm TouchStay's Queen of Guest Experience, and I'm also a property manager with properties in Missouri. But I have two brands, Branson Family Retreats and Missouri House Vacation Rentals. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, please absolutely ask your question. Hit the button at the bottom of your screen, ask a question. We will get to those questions at the end of our conversation. The goal of the webinar today is for you to get value and get information about working with influencers from all the different viewpoints, aspects. That's why I have such a difference in ladies here talking to you with this conversation. Okay, so my first question is for Chelsea. Now, Chelsea, you did mention just briefly in your intro that you got into this by accident. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got into the influencer creator content role? What led you to do it specifically, even for vacation rentals? Because I know you do different like hotels, resorts, things like that. And you've really, really grown. And then side note, everybody, I had Chelsea out last year. So she is totally vetted and approved. My stamp of approval. So one of the reasons I really want to dig in because Chelsea is amazing at this. So tell us a little bit more how you got into it, Chelsea.
well, I started out as a travel agent. So I was just booking trips, for other people. But what I found I loved the most was creating the content for my Facebook and Instagram account that I had for this travel agency. But I was working for, like a host travel agency or whatever. And so I was creating this content essentially for them. And I was just getting questions all the time about it. So I kind of changed my handle and thought I'm just going to start creating content about places I love because that's what I liked to tell people was my suggestions, my things to do, what I loved. And then it just kind of started taking off and the reels started going viral and the TikTok started going viral. And then I got a call from a treehouse actually in Asheville, North Carolina, asking me if they would be willing for me to come stay. And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought I've made it. I'm getting a free stay, of course. So we actually drove there. We're just about 6 hours from Asheville. So it was an easy way to get there. I took my family, we created content, and then ever since it's just been going from there. I took some courses, on kind of the business side of influencing because, it was a whole new world for me. And so that's really helped me along with contracts and proposals and all the stuff that now has become a business out of social media, essentially. So, but it took off within a year. I grew from 1,000 followers to 100,000 followers in a year. So it was quick and fast paced, and it just continues to grow. So.
Chelsea, you mentioned that a treehouse contacted you, but before we get to that part, I want to talk about how we as property managers and hosts, we actually get contacted by influencers quite a bit, because especially when you've got an amazing stay and the influencer's like, "Ooh, I would love to make content at your place."
Right.
Now, as a manager host, we also have to be aware of, are they just looking for a free stay? Are they actually good at influencing? What are
Right.
they doing? So Sarah, when you have these influencers approach you, or that you've talked to others who have had this, how do you evaluate those approaches?
Yes, you're right. We get a lot of approaches. My sort of DMs on Instagram and my inbox is always full of at least a couple a day asking for, I really like your place. I'd like to come and create some content. I always approach it generally, first of all, with an open mind. I don't really like the term influencer because I don't think it necessarily is about influence. We look at it from a longer term partnership and sort of content creation point of view. So we've got some relationships with photographers and bloggers or influencers that have come to stay, but we view them very much from a content creation point of view. And we want to try and create longer term relationships rather than just a one stay wonder. And I always look at how well their audience matches the profile and them as a person that's going to be staying with us and representing our brand. How well aligned are they with our typical guests and the guest experience that we offer? And then I use some tools to evaluate their sort of how engaged their audience is. So I don't get too swayed by the numbers because we have worked with some people that have had very large followings, but actually it's very, turned out that didn't generate any bookings. And yet we've worked with people with smaller followings, and particularly like content creators, like photographers, where it's been really lucrative for us. Not only have we had some amazing content, some of which is that way, picture of the treehouse that was created by a professional photographer who I found on Instagram. And that has been really valuable to our business. So definitely.
Those are, yeah, I like how you rephrase that from influencer to content creator, because they are creating that content for you to use in your marketing. You also mentioned data. So Madi, I want to go over to you. What kind of data is best practice for the host and property managers to request when they're evaluating working with the influencer?
It's a good question. I'd say it's definitely not about follower count, because I think, as we've all learned, followers come and go, especially on TikTok. You can jump your numbers, and I think it really comes down to engagement. And if you're really trying to work with that creator to drive direct bookings, like, it depends what you're trying to do, but you should look at engagement rate and just like what are and also follower demographic, like engagement rate demographic, like who are these people that are engaging with this content? Where are they? And we always say it's great to start out with local content creators because their following is probably local as well. And so if it is a drive-to destination, like Asheville is a great example, you could be targeting creators kind of in that radius to drive their following to come book with you. We've seen a lot of success there. So a lot of different things go into it, but also with the amount of creators we've talked to, and then also match them with property managers, like, it's very much still, there's no hard, fast rule on what makes a good creator, what's going to make a good creator for that specific property. We've had creators with a few thousand followers do really well and impact the business great. And then, yeah, as you guys said, some of the larger followings, it's harder to attribute, like, what they're doing and where they're going. So definitely very much depends kind of a gut feel also at the end of the day, like culture fit, is their style of content fitting your brand? A lot of different things go into it.
That is some very, very wise words. I remember I had an influencer contact me, and she wanted to stay at my 10-bedroom house for for just her and her husband for a birthday celebration. And I looked at her followers and all her content, and it was all about super luxury yacht resorts, Beverly Hills types things. And I'm just like, no, I need 3, 4 generation families to come stay at my place. Is like not a good fit. And it was just interesting how she's like, what? You don't want to get in front of all my millions of followers? I'm like, no, nope, not a good fit for me.
Mhm.
But okay, so Chelsea,
Yes.
I want to host influencers. I've hosted you. I've got some others lined up for September. But if there's someone who's never hosted influencers before, they're trying to get into this, trying to tap into this really good way to market, what are the best ways to reach the influencers and then to vet them, that to make sure it's the right fit for them? As Maddie just talked about the data and what we need to look for, what is it from your viewpoint as an influencer, how do we reach them and do that?
Just by contacting them, is that the question? How do you first reach out with a contact?
How do you find them? So you
Oh, how do you
thinking,
find them?
yeah,
I know for me and what I've learned through Instagram, just finding you want those keywords of what you're trying to promote in your state. So if you're wanting to promote family travel, that's what I would search for on Instagram. And that's where a lot of mine comes from. Yes, I've done a few girls' trips or whatever it may be that they want, but my main focus is family travel. So I feel like that's where most of my stuff comes from. And I create, and there's all different types of influencers. I'm good friends with one that never shows her face, but whereas me, I like to create more lifestyle content and show the people in the homes what you're doing. My thing would be just to research those words or keywords that you're wanting out of your state and look on Instagram. I think TikTok's harder to search, to be honest, than Instagram is when it comes, especially to travel things, in my opinion. It'll show you stuff from 2 or 3 years ago, and that may not be relevant to what it is now. Instagram to me does a better job of being able to search keywords, especially, and this is a creator tip, in your name needs to be what your niche is, because that's what they're searching. So that's why in my name, I also have family travel, USA travel, whatever it may be, to help those keywords along. And then you need your bullet points of what you search for. I also typically in my link tree, or in your biography, I will have a portfolio of past work in there, so it can, without even necessarily reaching out to me first, you can check my portfolio. If it's not anything that is your aesthetic or what you align to, I'm not going to waste my time with this, so that just kind of, and it helps me because I don't also want to be wasting my time with someone who I'm not going to be beneficial for as well. I think it needs to be a mutually beneficial situation for the creator and for the host. I always too, and this may be going off topic, but if a host can give me a tracking link, I love that because I like the data as well. And it's just what the host wants out of it. Do they want more social media followers? Some want that. I've had a ranch come to me, they wanted to up their social media following. So that was a little bit different approach as to what kind of content or what I was doing as to the bookings, if that makes sense. So I think it's got to work hand in hand. It's got to be a partnership. And as an influencer or creator, you have to know what the host wants out of the project or the campaign, in order to get the best for both of you.
I think that's a really, really good point. Like when I hosted you, my goal wasn't more followers, and I didn't get many more followers. My goal
Right.
was bookings. And
Right.
every time you posted something, it would be, oh, I know Chelsea just posted because
Yeah.
they use the code that I gave
Right.
you.
I love a code. I love a
Yep.
code.
Yeah. And so, I tell you right now, it was absolutely, the ROI came back on it
Okay, great.
for sure. Yeah. And I'm like, when can I have Chelsea back again?
Yeah. Anytime I'm within driving distance.
I know.
We loved it. We loved it.
But I think that you made a really good point with the tracking, whether it's a tracking link or a coupon code. That way
Right.
you can check the ROI with your investment in the content creation, because you've got, as a host property manager, we're paying for the nights because we're not getting income from the nights. It could be also the cleaning fee. You got your hard costs, and then you pay the content creator a lot of times. And then you
Right.
have to consider licensing as well. So like I paid for extra licensing with Chelsea because I wanted to use her photos, the content she created for me, for more than just a year, because my guests take more than a year in their searches
Right.
and decisions for our large places. But Sarah, I want to go back to you. How do you negotiate and contract with the influencers as a host property manager? Do you have contractual minimums? I think it will also go back to what Chelsea was talking about, what your target is, what your goal is with having the influencer. So Sarah, as you have worked with influencers, what is it that the things that you need to keep in mind?
I think you should have an agreement and a written agreement. So I think a lot of people sort of negotiate and come to an agreement on like DMs on the platforms, or maybe even email. I'd always encourage owners to have something in writing. I actually have like a template agreement about and agreeing what the deliverables are. So being really clear what each party's responsibilities are in the agreement. And I think I 100% agree with your point, Chelsea, about objectives and knowing what you're trying to achieve. Because I think sometimes us hosts, we have unrealistic expectations that we're going to get immediate direct bookings. Our treehouse is very much like, it's luxury, it's very high end. It's around $650 a night. So it's 500 UK sterling a night. So ultimately it's not a quick impulse stay, and we're booked up quite a long way in advance. So we've got to take the view that that's why I always approach it from, it's a longer term investment. And I would want to try and get some specific assets and some content that I can use longer term. So to Tyann's point about having longer licensing, I did have one influencer who very kindly offered me 10 images for a very large sum of money and said I could use them for 30 days. Needless to say, I wasn't very impressed. It's like, that's no use to me whatsoever. And I think that's the thing about the negotiations. It's making sure you're both on the same page, that you feel comfortable in the relationship, and you feel that I worked as a partnership marketing manager for a number of years. So for me, partnerships are all about, and this is no different, it's about that win-win, that you both feel like you're getting an equal amount from the relationship and it's not one-sided. And I think sometimes some influencers do behave in a way that you're like beholden to them as the influencer, and it feels quite one-sided. And this particular one that stayed, it was a very one-sided relationship, and it was actually a mistake on my part. I should have realized that it wasn't a good fit. They were quite good from a profile point of view, but their attitude didn't fit, and they didn't treat the place with respect when they stayed either. So that also then made me feel a bit disgruntled as the host. So I think both parties need to be very upfront and clear about exactly who's going to do what am I going to get, what are we both going to get from the relationship and the partnership, and any timeframes to that, and obviously any fees, because as Tyann pointed out, you're losing the stay revenue, you've got all of your other sort of fixed changeover and costs of the actual stay, in addition possibly to a fee as well. So it's weighing all of that up and making sure it feels quite balanced.
Yeah, and with the goals too, like one of the things I wanted Chelsea to do was like look at our communication flow as she was waiting to come stay, and then using our Touch Stay digital guidebook as well. I think Chelsea, you mentioned that was the first time you'd ever used a digital
Yes.
guidebook like that.
Mm-hmm. And I loved it. It was awesome. But I loved that you had me do that, because a lot of the time, as a content creator, you get the like overly great treatment, right? From like hotels or whatever that you may not get as a regular customer, if you will. It's like not necessarily with Airbnb host or vacation rental host, but because I feel like they always do the special little touches, but hotels do not. Let's be honest, they're not putting out food and stuff for everybody that comes in their room. And so I like being able to see it from a perspective of, I actually booked this place. I'm coming here to stay. And with that guidebook, I was able to see that, like, this is what everyone's getting. This is how everybody that will book with her will be getting these emails and getting this leading up to your stay. And it was nice for me to be able to share that with my followers as well, that it's not just, over the top luxury hotel that is just giving me this stay. This is what you'll get with her if you just book, period. And so I thought that was great. And to the point that was made about, you might get an influencer that you didn't click with. I always think it's important, and I should have said this in my past when you were asking about contact. I've never really completed or done a stay without a Zoom meeting first or without talking to the host first. I feel like you can get a vibe for each other. You can see if it's going to work on both sides instead of just email communication or, like she said, DMs. You really need to get face to face or communicating. And every great partnership that I've had has been that before. So that's another little tip I should have thrown in there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it now. That's awesome. Okay, Madi, back to you. What are some best practices that vacation rental hosts and managers can leverage when working with the influencers?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, so for context, over the last probably 2 months, we've been connecting a lot of influencers with property managers, and we help on the negotiation side. So I've seen it all. And I think you asked for tips, right, Tyann? I don't want to take this.
Yeah, best practices.
Best practices. Yeah, I think it's good to understand that a lot of content creators, what we've seen anyways, is there's no standard rate for a content creator, right? Everyone has different rates. Everyone has a different idea of what they're worth. And for a content creator, they're probably going to throw out the highest thing they think they can ask for because they know there's a negotiation process. So best practices is go in knowing what your budget is, what your number is. And, the worst thing you can do is probably lowball someone in and think you can get a piece of content for $50. That just devalues the content creator's work. So I think level setting expectations before you go in, working with a content creator, although you're offering them a free stay, that really doesn't get you an influencer or content creator these days. They charge for their content as well. So knowing it's not just going to be a free stay, but you are going to pay on top of that. And it might be $1,000, it might be a few $1,000s. Is the influencer creator flying in? Are they local? Because if they fly in, their costs are a lot higher. And we just had that issue actually with one of our creators. They're flying in from San Diego. The property's out in the upstate of New York. So you fly into the city, then you have to get a car and you have to drive. And so there's a lot of travel involved, plus the days. And so that adds to the cost of all this. So best practices there. I would say on the contract side, Chelsea, would be interesting to know from you, but our influencers typically come with a contract. So it's not up to the property manager to supply one. It's the influencer creator who is supplying that. They'll put in the deliverables that you guys agree upon. They'll put in the price, and that's how it works. And other best practices that I've learned recently, this was new to me, is that you're not just buying a piece of content or a post that's going to be a collaboration between your Instagram page and their Instagram page. There's also things with licensing, usage rights. If you're going to run paid ads on it, you're going to pay for that because it's an ad at that point. So a lot of nuanced things. And I would say if you're new to this as a host and property manager, maybe don't jump headfirst in by yourself, but work with a partner that can help you with this. So there's lots of good agencies out there that have a slew of content creators they can connect you with, or educate yourself on this before. So maybe start with a smaller creator before you jump first into the big influencers. So I would say it's just the Wild West, and don't go in expecting a black and white, this is how it works for everyone, because there's no right or wrong here.
Madi, that is really, really good wisdom. And I'm glad you also pointed out the fact about the licensing and the ways that the content can be used. Because me as a photographer originally, I had to battle a lot of people saying, oh, I found it on the internet. of course I can use it, right? I'm like, no, I took that photograph. I own the license. It is mine. You will have to pay for that or take it down. But I want to go to Sarah. And one of the things, this is something that is an investment and we want that ROI. So that also means we as property managers and hosts are trying to use that content to, as long as possible, get as many uses, double, triple, quadruple dip out of it as much as possible. So how do you amplify the content creation for the long-term value?
That's a really good question. I tend to take the view that normally when I negotiate the content, I want perpetual sort of rights to use it for the lifetime of our business. And I think, Maddie shared some tips there about, making sure, actually it's funny, most of the influencers and content creators, we've had to do the contract. They don't come with a contract. And I think that many of them have not come through agencies. So they're sort of winging it a little bit themselves. And it sometimes does feel a little bit unprofessional. But in terms of, obviously everyone's not the same, but it's been, like I say, it's a wild west out there. So in terms of amplifying it, I would want to have perpetual rights to use it so that that investment is for the longevity of my business. I tend to use a lot of the content on my website. And that's where, having that high quality content, and it's things that I can shoot stuff for stories. I can put little video clips together for reels, although I did have a particular visit and stay that was for just doing reel clips, vertical video, short format, because the reality is when you're back-to-back bookings, you just can't get in there to do it. So they came and stayed the one night and created like 60 clips. I would never get that volume. So I think it's the quality of the work and the volume that is an investment for the business. Is that what you sort of meant, Tyann? I wasn't sure in terms of amplifying it, what you meant.
Yeah, that's exactly what different ways to use the content and be able to get the most bang for your buck, basically, as we would say here in the US.
Yeah, if you want bang for your buck. I mean, I've used it across so many different, I've created like on Canva, like PDFs of, for like we did an elopement shoot. So I got, again, a photographer came along and we worked in partnership on that particular shoot. So it wasn't necessarily deemed an influencer, but again, it was a collaboration between 5 different suppliers and us as the short-term rental. We're doing elopements and proposals and honeymoon stays. So we wanted some content to reflect that. And that's quite difficult to get with actual couples when they're staying from a privacy point of view. So we staged a fake elopement, fake sort of ceremony so that we could get all the content. And then I've used that across the website and then in sort of like a PDF little brochure that I send to the sort of couples when they inquire as well. So definitely being able to sort of leverage it across all of my marketing activity.
And Sarah, that's a really good point that you made that. And I think it goes back to the fact that you're changing the term from influencer to content creation. And you're looking for ways to create content in a way that, is a mirror effect of who your guests are. So creating the elopement. I've seen a lot of folks do that with wedding venues. Didn't even think about it for a stay. That's incredible to do it that way. Some of the things I've done recently is I just have made a lifestyle video for the local news network. So that's going to be airing this week. So we have a 5-minute spot on the lifestyle section. So there's all kinds of different ways, even your Chamber of Commerce, your DMOs, they are always looking for content and you can partner with them for them to create content at your property too. All right, so we have a few questions in our chat box. So we're going to go to those questions now. And if you guys think of additional questions, throw them in there. We're going to take some time to go ahead and answer those. And then I've got a few other things before we wrap up. So don't leave the webinar yet. There's still more things to come. As I'm looking at these questions, there's some really good ones. So we'll start with Sarah. This question is for you. Rachel wants to know, what kind of tools do you use to evaluate influencers? And I'd be interested, Maddie, what you use as well, but we'll start with Sarah.
Yes, I can't remember the name of one of them. One of them was Upfluence, which had a free tool, which you could actually go on and put the Instagram handle in, and it would actually evaluate their engagement rates. Obviously, you can manually go on and look at the sort of the profile of the followers. That's quite labor intensive. I found that tool particularly useful. It's a little bit hidden on their website because they do have a paid for version, but there are some sort of free tools that you can grab online. Wish I could remember the name of the second one that I just discovered recently. And the key for me is like the location as well, because we get very few inbound guests. They tend to be UK residents. So I found some influencers that had like 60%, 70% US. So obviously that for me, I ruled them out because there was only like 20% in the UK. So it was like that even if the profile was good, it was like they're not potentially going to travel to us because we're quite hidden in the UK. We're not near London. So it's difficult to fly in and come and stay with us. So yeah, that would be my sort of tips, is to Upfluence is one. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know what the other one was. I've forgotten it now. Again, it was one that you got like a certain amount of time, like I think it was a 30-day trial. So it was like sign up, use it for 30 days, put all of your like potential content and influencers in the content creators and influencers in there, evaluate which ones you like, and then save them for later.
Very nice. Maddie, do you have additional tools that you've seen people use or that you use yourself?
No, not so much a tool. Like we track everything in Excel, but what we do for evaluation is have an interview with the creator, kind of see who they are, have them share screenshots of their metrics on Instagram. That's like the best insider stuff you can get. And it's a big red flag if they're not going to share that. Like that's just a hard pass, because that's stuff that everyone should be sharing. So that'll show engagement, demographic breakdown, all of that stuff. And then from there, what I do is I actually go and look at their reels specifically and see how many views they're getting. Did they have one that randomly went viral, or are they consistently going viral? And then I go pretty deep and I actually evaluate like the hooks the influencer is using in the actual reel itself. Do they know what a hook is, or did they get lucky? All of that stuff is kind of what I look at.
Those are excellent tips.
I was just saying, Maddie, I find that most people don't actually share their stats openly either. So you really have to ask, which like Chelsea provides that. And I love the fact that she's got a link so that you can check her out beforehand, because I found that most of it you have to ask, quite pointed questions about the data. So they approach you, but you don't get any data to back up why it's a good fit. It's just like you feel like it's just a random DM or email that's been sent out to like loads of business.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, the influencers are crazy. Like the few that we've worked with that we passed on, they don't understand what goes into property management, what goes into being a host, all the fees and costs and cleaning costs associated with it all. So a lot of them are pretty lax with the fact that they're like, oh, I'm just going to reach out. Like I have a few thousand followers. These people probably don't know what they're doing. They're going to say yes. So a lot of the DMs get lost, like the good DMs get lost in the sea of people just thinking they can get free stuff because they've heard, oh, people get free stays. So yeah, I mean, if you do get back to the creators, I would just say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Could you mind sharing, some stats on your engagement and stuff like that as like a phase 2.
That's excellent. Yeah. And I do the same. I'm like, do you have a media packet by chance or press packet? And then it's either silence or they actually email it to me. Okay, Chelsea, this question is for you. Rachel had asked, what's a tracking link? Because you had mentioned a tracking link earlier.
So a tracking link would be something that the host would provide me or the hotel or whoever it may be that I can use to put in my stories, on my reels. A lot of times I will use the comment link feature, which will, if they comment a certain keyword, it will send them the link to their DMs, which I love because then it lives in their DMs as opposed to a story which vanishes after 24 hours and then that tracks it back to me to let them know that they used my link to book to answer that question. But the comment link feature I love because like we were saying, I believe working with brands like clothing or whatever it may be is totally different than working with travel and hotels and vacation rentals, because people don't just book a vacation in 2 minutes. They have to think about it. They have to sit on it. They have to process, do we have the money to go? Can everybody go? So they may not book off of a story necessarily that's going to disappear in 24 hours. So if you have that comment link feature, they can think, oh, she sent me that link 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go back to it. So I just like to use that feature as well on my social media. and it usually goes over well and it helps with engagement. The more people are commenting, the more that reel is going to get pushed out. So I just think it's a great little asset to have as a creator to help the host as well with their properties. It drives people to their website. So I just think it's a good little feature to use.
Excellent. I love it. Okay, so now this question, all three of you ladies, say yes or no if you have it. And then what we can do is we can send it in the follow-up email afterwards if you do. So Christina and I think and Sibylla both have asked about an agreement template so that they can see what an agreement would look like between an influencer and a property manager or host.
Yeah,
Those,
I have one saved. I may be
you have
able
one
to.
willing to share?
Let me check, make sure. I don't want to lie to you.
Yeah, do a double check.
I create them. I kind of, I usually do create my own contracts, but it's always different, you know, for each host, whatever they may want or deliverables we've agreed upon. So I think I've got a basic one saved that I probably could email to you or share with you.
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and then we'll put it into the email that we're going to send out afterwards here this. And then just so everybody knows, just for always whenever you have an agreement, always best practices to run it by your attorney, lawyer, someone who understands all those legalese things if you would like. Never ever take something as full on word when it's just a template like this. So that is the legal advice because I am not a lawyer or an attorney, nor do I play one on TV or on webinars. Okay, there's my legal statement. Okay, so Sean wants to know for host. So I'm gonna go Maddie or Sarah. You guys can grab this. What's a reasonable set of deliverables in a content creator engagement?
Good question. I think
Let me ask. I would say it one more time while you're thinking about it. What is a reasonable set of deliverables in a content creator engagement?
Okay. So I would say the ones that have been not what I'd be looking for in terms of deliverables would be like one reel and like 8 stories from a stay. And I'm quite inclined to not let them post when they're actually staying as well. So it's like I don't necessarily, it depends on the objectives, but I probably, if they're creating a batch of content for me, I don't really want that shared during the stay. If they are doing it more from a, maybe we're trying to get people on for an offer or onto my email list, or not just growing. I mean, I generally don't look at just growing followers because I want to try and get people onto my email list. I want to drive traffic to my website. So I'd work on a deliverable that sort of like you were saying, Chelsea, about having an offer code or a coupon code so that there's something for the person to take action. So, I mean, deliverables I've had with content creators has been somewhere in the region of like 50 to 100 images from a visit. And like I said, I had one visit which was specifically for, we had 50 minimum vertical video clips for reels, which I have perpetual rights to use. So again, it really depends on your objectives and what you're trying to achieve. But I've generally found, you see sometimes they'll say like just pay for a sponsored post, and it might be like $50 for a sponsored post. I've generally found they don't work. No surprises there. But I would generally want an agreed bank of content, a mix of the last content creator I had who came and stayed. I wanted drone videography. That was my main objective because that was missing. We hadn't done any since we launched. So I had, again, a minimum number of video clips, and I did an actual written brief with him in terms of we worked together on what he was going to shoot, so that it wasn't just left to, see what he feels like on the day. It was like there were some sort of like mandatory ones that I'd included, and then there were obviously his discretion to be creative, because you don't want to stifle their creativity, but you do want to make sure that you've got your minimums that you get back. So hopefully I answered that. It depends unfortunately what you're trying to achieve.
No, that
Yeah,
was
I can add a little color there too from my perspective, because I think if you're starting out and you don't, it depends, but most of the time you probably don't want to be the editor of the content. Like if you want a full package of, I'm going to deliver you the content, it's fully edited, you just basically upload it and click post, add a caption. you should look at possibly, if you're doing a 2 to 3 night stay, like 4 to 6 reels. We've ran into trouble when you try and put a time limit on that. So we got really specific and we're like, all right, 15 to 30 seconds, 30 seconds to a minute. I would just say 4 to 6 reels, mix of long and short format content, long being a minute over, not longer. Because I think if you get into like 2 or 3 minute territory, that's like a full on edited video, and that can get into the tens of thousands of dollars. Like that's very expensive, different type of content. Reels, photos, depends on the content creator, because some creators just shoot purely on their iPhone, and that might not be a photo you want, but some, shoot on their iPhone and then they also have like a DSLR camera. You want those photos. So it depends on the creator there. And then, yeah, I mean, they're going to need time to edit this and all of that. So it's not a real time. They're not staying and also delivering the content. They're going to stay, and then you give them about 30 days after the stay to deliver that content to you fully edited. And then you should also keep in mind that you get a revision, or like you should request a revision just in case the content isn't fully on brand or they say something funny. Like a revision on what they deliver you is acceptable, I would say, as well.
Excellent. Really, really good stuff there, Madi. And some things that a lot of people don't think about, because as a property manager host, you're thinking, oh, they're there, they're posting now, we should have it all now. And it's like, no, no, there's the time difference here so that they can deliver good quality content. One of the questions that did come up, which is interesting, is Christina asked, what's better for the host, UGC, which would be user-generated content, versus the influencer content? And I think that's an interesting question, because influencer / content creator is also UGC at the same time. Do any of you ladies have any thoughts on that?
Well, as a creator, I think they go hand in hand. Typically within the deliverables, I'm posting it on my site, and I'm also creating content with usage for the host to use however they want after the fact. Which of course that's also negotiated in price and all that stuff when it comes to your package. I wouldn't just give all of it away for free, obviously. So it just depends on what the host is willing to pay. But I just think, another point to that is I always like, at least just to be able to get what I need out of it, the best for the host, I always like at least a 2-3 night stay, because weather can affect your stay. It may be all these factors that go into it where you may not be getting the best content because you didn't have enough time, if that makes sense. Especially like I have a drone, so if it's too windy, if it's too rainy, you're not going to be able to get that content for them that you may need. So I just like to have a little bit of a cushion there with days. I know some want to just offer like a 1 night stay, and that's fine. I will do it if the pay's right, but it's like stressful because you've got to get so much, and me being the person I am, I'm a perfectionist, and so I want it to be right. So I just think give them a cushion, give them some time to really sink their teeth into your home and get a feel for it. I just think that creates more authentic content and better all the way around than just rushing in to get the footage and exiting the door,
Yeah,
that's also.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add on the UGC front, because we pay for UGC content at Mount as well, like as a company. There's definitely a difference in price. Like there are some really good creators that don't have a big following, but are really good at producing content, and that's like their whole business. And so a piece of UGC content, a reel, we're targeting a budget for around $200, $250 a video. But if you find a creator who has a really big influence as well, but also happens to be, you just would be inherently good at making content also, and you want more of a collaboration post because you want their following to also see the content they posted plus your following, that would be more of a higher price ticket. So we had a creator who quoted us $500 for a piece of UGC, so like a 60-minute or 60-second reel, and it would just be posted by us. She would not be attached to that piece of content other than creating and editing it. If I wanted that same piece of content made by her, and then she also does it as a collab post, so her name is now attached to it and her following is now seeing that video and it's in conjunction with Mount, it was going to be $1,500. So that's the price difference, is if you want that name and you want that influence, you're going to pay for it. So UGC is sometimes a cheaper option to get started, especially if you don't know how to create content and you just want to flood your Instagram, TikTok pages with content. UGC creators are a good way to start that.
Yeah, I'll add to that.
I like that.
As I say, I'll add to that actually user-generated content is like when your guests do it, it's like a dream because it makes your life easier when they actually tag you. And it's like, yes, I can now share this, and you know that they're happy for you to sort of share it. But yeah, I definitely think you need to show people, and it needs to be like real life, and that, I suppose that's the benefit of UGC, is like people actually in the experience. And I like Chelsea's point about having a balance of like what maybe while you're there and actually sharing the experience in a real life way, and then also having some assets and content that you can that's been created that you can use longer term. And I would say that influencers, people, this is why I suppose the term influencer sort of grates a little bit, because actually when people come and stay with you, they work so hard. I mean, when I've seen our content creators, the shoots that they've done and the content they've created, you know, they're not just sitting there on holiday. You know, they are experiencing your holiday experience, but they are ultimately working. So they are not just free to do whatever they want. They've got some deliverables that they're trying to meet, and obviously make you happy as the client. So because people often say to me in my membership, they'll sort of say, oh, they want these fees, they're so high. And it's a bit like, this is their time and this is their job. So, you know, you wouldn't expect to do something for free. And it's the same thing. People do expect, I think now they sort of think, oh, well, I'll just give them a stay and that's costing me, so it should be free. And it's like, well, no, you're paying for their skill at creating the content for you, and the rights to use it, you know, for that period that you've negotiated.
Very, very well said. Ladies, you're amazing. Thank you. And everybody watching, make sure you go follow them. Chelsea's at Magical Wondering on Instagram. Sarah is at Get Fully Booked is one, right? And then at Hudnall Hideout.
At Hudnall's Hideout.
At Hudnall's Hideout. Okay. And then Maddie is at Rent Mount. I am at Tyann Marsink, as well as at Touch Day Welcome, all on Instagram. And before you guys go, couple more things. One is I am doing another webinar in 2 weeks, and it is taking this content as well as others, social media in minutes. So effective strategies for busy schedules. And my folks will be Tim Johnson from Seaside Vacations. You've probably seen a lot of his crazy stuff on social media if you follow Seaside Vacations, as well as Lauren Widmeyer with Studio 82. She's a digital marketing agency. Okay, then secondly, this, of course, was brought to you by Touch Day Digital Guidebooks. Start your free trial at touchday.com/influencers and use the code InfluencerQueen for 10% off your new account. And thirdly, and the best one, thank you, ladies, for joining me. I really appreciate all of the wisdom and information, knowledge that you have shared freely with the group. And this was being recorded, so everybody will get a email afterwards with all of this. You can send in more questions at that time too, and we'll do another webinar too. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you all.
Thanks, everyone.